Hello, I'm William Michael of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, and in this video I'd like to address a topic that came up in a discussion that I had last night with a family in a consultation meeting. I was asked about extracurricular activities and socializing of students in homeschools, and we discussed these related issues a little bit, and having some time today, I'd like to get into that topic in a little more detail. First of all, if you're homeschooling, you know that one of the big topics that people talk about is this concern that our children be socialized when they're homeschooled, especially in a family where there's just one or a few children. There's a lot of isolation, and that's a serious concern because man is a social animal, and we have to learn to live in society, and that requires experience and formation within the context of social life. To have a family where there's only one child, if that was the case, it's very difficult for that child in a homeschool environment because they don't even have the experience of the society of siblings in a family. They're very isolated, and that can create problems. We don't like to be lonely. We desire society, and yet at the same time, society can be dangerous for us. And so there's this dilemma, it seems, between solitude and society. Sacred Scripture says that he who walks with wise men shall become wise. So society can lead us to wisdom, but Scripture also says that evil company corrupts good morals. So we have these opposite messages regarding society. Society has the potential to be good, but it also has the potential to be bad. So we have this dilemma with society, and then what I always talk with parents about is that when they begin homeschooling and people start talking about socializing and things like that, one of my concerns is that we separate school and academic work. Remember, we're not even in school in a modern formal sense. Academic work and social relationships, social activities are two separate things. They're two separate things. I joked last night that most of the time when we try to socialize in school, we get into trouble. We get detention for talking to our friends or being late to a class or not being quiet, not doing our work, not paying attention to the teacher, but being distracted with our friends. And then we say, oh, what's great about school is you get to make friends. Well, no, you get in trouble for talking to your friends in school. So it's not that simple. I was a popular kid in school, had lots of friends, but all my friends, even though they were my friends in school, they were kids that lived in my neighborhood. They were kids who I played sports with. It really had nothing to do with going to school. We just spent time together at school, but we also spent time together at home during the summer, after school, on the weekends, and so on. It had nothing to do with school. School can't take credit for giving me friends. My friends came from life outside school, and we just happened to go to school together. So school and socializing really don't have some interdependent relationship at all. And homeschooling has nothing to do with socializing. We homeschool so that we can teach our children what they need to learn and study at home. That's what homeschooling is for. If we want to talk about social activities, there's a million options. There's a million options for social activities. The most important place for social activity is our parish. Our parish is the center of our devotional life, the place where we pray and worship. We have an intimate and eternal relationship with the people in our parish, that's the first community for social life, and it's designed for social life. We seek social relationships in our parish, in the church. We seek social relationships through family relations, through family activities, parties, celebrations, vacations, all these different things we do as family. We seek social relations there. Social relations, like I said, in my life, through other activities, through sports, through classes we take, through different activities and arts we participate in. We develop friends, and what makes them friends is that we share interests. My friends were my fellow baseball players, my fellow basketball players, kids I played in the school band with, all kids I lived in the same neighborhood as. We have relationships with people based on our interests. Those are our friends. It's got nothing to do with our academic work at school. So really, the academic work of homeschooling just needs to be left alone. It's not responsible to provide us with friends. And at the same time, we can arrange social activities that allow our children to make friends related to their academic work. That's what's normally done through homeschool co-ops and things like that. But socializing is no problem for homeschool kids. And if you remember when you were in school, there were weird, isolated, shady kids in school. So being at school didn't make you social. Kids came to school who were socialized at home, and they were the kids who made friends in school. The weird kids, they came to school weird, and they stayed weird at school. So school is not a cause of social relations or social life. School is just a place where social people get together with friends, but they have those friends outside of school. So it has nothing to do with school. And we need to not allow this to be an argument for sending kids to school, because social relationships have nothing to do with school necessarily. So there's all kinds of ways for kids to be socialized, to find friends who share common interests, and you can see that the issue that needs to be addressed first is, what are our kids' interests? What are our kids' interests? If we're going to make friends, we're going to make good friends around our interests that we have common interests with. So the first thing is to figure out what our kids' interests are. Now, I played sports as a kid, and on my teams, let's say we had a dozen kids or 15 kids on a baseball team. There were 10 or 11 kids who came to play baseball. They were at practice. They played hard. They practiced in the off season. They took games seriously. They wanted to be good baseball players. They wanted to win baseball games. That's why they signed up to play baseball. And then there were always 3 or 4 or 5 kids who were there because their mom signed them up. And they looked like a mannequin wearing a uniform. They had nothing to do with the team. We had no relationships. Usually they got picked on and bullied by other kids. There's two different experiences. The good experience is enjoyed by the kids who have an interest in that activity, and they share that interest and make friends with other kids who share that interest. But the kids who didn't want to be there, they didn't get anything out of that experience except, be picked on for stinking at the sport. And it's really not fair for the kids, for the parents to do that. If a kid's not interested in something, they shouldn't be made to do it. They're not going to make friends in an activity or through an activity that they're not interested in. It's sort of doing the exact opposite of what's necessary to make friends. And sometimes parents don't want to allow the kids to pursue their own interests. They want the kids to pursue their interests, which is pretty cruel. But in order to have friends and make friends and have social relations, our kids have to cultivate their interests. And these things are all different. They have nothing to do necessarily with academic work. And like I said, there should be no pressure put on on homeschooling to make friends. Friends are found outside of school. So when the question comes up, what do you think about extracurricular activities and activities for the kids to participate in, things like that? It's all dependent on the kids' interests. When my kids were young, my oldest kids, when they were young, I taught them what I knew. I took my 3-year-old firstborn son out to hit some balls off the tee and roll the ball around in the yard and things like that. But as he got older and got to the age where I started playing baseball, he wasn't interested in baseball. He'd rather climb trees and play on the swing set, make bows and arrows, and play out in the yard. When I was a kid, I couldn't do those things. I lived in a suburb in central New Jersey. If you wanted to play, you had to go somewhere. So I was interested in sports as a little kid. I could practice and play sports all day, every day when I was growing up. All my friends were related to sports or other things I did. But if a kid's not interested in a sport, he shouldn't have to play the sport. It doesn't make any sense. In order to be good at something, you have to have an interest in it. And signing a kid up for a sport he's not interested in is really a waste of time. If a kid comes to me and says, "Hey, Dad, I would like to play basketball. I would like to play for the local rec basketball league," I would say, we're not going to sign you up for a basketball league when you've never even played basketball or done anything. I'll tell you what you need to do. You need to start shooting baskets around here. When we go to the health club, when you're in the street, you've got a basketball net in the driveway. Start dribbling, shooting, practicing basic basketball stuff. And if you show an interest in the actual skills that are necessary to play basketball, and you can develop some, basic competency in those skills, well, then we'll talk about signing up for a league. But if you're just bored and looking for something to do, signing up for a sport is not the solution for that. So I would tell my kids what they should do, and we would see that they're really not interested in that. So we didn't waste time with all these different leagues and sign-ups and things like that. If they were interested in something, I'd give them the opportunity. But if they didn't show a real interest or a sustained interest, we're not going to waste our family time driving kids around for things that they really don't care about. So what matters is the kid's interest, and I'll give you an example. My 7-year-old daughter, Anna, has taken interest in ballet. And she was interested in ballet when she was 4 years old. She's a kid who, she loves to listen to Frank Sinatra. She loves to watch Shirley Temple. She's dancing around the house 24 hours a day. If you put on a ballet, you put on the Nutcracker or Swan Lake or some musical, she's singing and dancing, studying the movements of the actors, practicing them in front of the mirror, practicing all of her moves. She's interested in ballet. And when we sign her up for ballet, she just takes off running. She wants to be in as many classes as she can. She's practicing constantly all week. The teachers love working with her. They're telling us that she has potential and is skilled in these things. It's a sign of a real interest. It's a sustained interest. It's worth investing in as a family. My wife's got to sacrifice time to bring her to her dance lessons. We've got to sacrifice money to pay for all these lessons, but it's worth it because she has a real interest in that activity, and it's good for her. It's good for her. She's learning lots of important skills and virtues through those lessons because she's involved in them for the right reason. Another example, my oldest son, Jonathan, when he was around 13 years old, got interested in weightlifting. He started weightlifting, or he was interested in weightlifting, was doing push-ups, sit-ups, running, pull-ups, anything that he could find to do, he was doing. And finally, he asked me if I would buy gym equipment for the house. So seeing his sustained interest in fitness and exercise, I said, yeah, sure. And we made it a Christmas present one year to equip the garage with, all the basic stuff that they need to work out, a bench press, all the different bars and weight plates and dumbbells that they need. We built them a little gym in the garage because he showed a sustained interest in it, and he used that gym and basically wore the paint off the weights, working out 2, 3, 4 hours a day from the time he was 14 until he, finally turned 18, started driving, and got himself a job at the local health club. So, you see that interest, and that interest is worth investing in. But just to have kids busy with activities and be running all around all over the place, throwing money at every different club and activity that comes up, signing kids up for things they're not interested in, that makes no sense at all. So there's good in these activities, but that good is only realized if the kids are interested in them and if the kids are actually willing to engage with those studies and activities in a way that's productive and good for them. Now with sports, one of the problems is people will often talk about all of the benefits that sports have to offer kids. They'll say, oh man, if you play sports, you get to learn all about teamwork, you get to learn all these lessons that the sports teach and so on. And there's all these benefits, that are spoken of about sports. And really, it's not true. It's not true. There are lots of benefits available in sports, but they're only available when kids are interested in those sports and when the kids have coaches who are teachers and mentors and actually understand those lessons and effectively teach them, just like anything else. There are coaches who understand those benefits and those lessons, the moral lessons that can be gained through sports. There are coaches here and there, just like there are good teachers in schools here and there. There are coaches who understand and teach those things. I can remember back to when I was in what we called Major League, when we were like 11 and 12 years old. I had a coach named Mr. Schmidt, who was like a father to me, who was a mentor and a teacher. And I still remember playing for him and all of the moral lessons and things like that I learned. There were other coaches I had that were total immoral losers, just foul-mouthed, sexually perverted talk everywhere we went. Two different coaches, two completely different experiences. A high school baseball coach who was a great coach and teacher who, intimidated the life out of me and taught us serious lessons about competing and rising up to competition. He had a saying, pressure makes diamonds, that he taught us. And that kind of stuff sticks with you when you go out from those sports into your other pursuits in life. Those lessons, sure, they're very helpful. Things my grandfather taught me, as he would always be at my games and would be driving me to games or talking to me after games. All of those lessons, sure, incredible benefits to learn through sports, but only if those circumstances are present. Like I said, I had other coaches who were horrible influences on me. So it all depends on coaches, and you may find that where you live, the local rec leagues do have great coaches, or you may find that they don't have good coaches. And that would determine whether those things are worth pursuing or not. So it's really not so simple as to say that sports are good and they teach all these lessons. That's not true. It's not true. It's not that simple. There has to be interest in the student. There's a certain level of skill a student has to reach before those lessons start to be learned. Coaches have to be conscious of those lessons and desire to teach them and effectively teach them. When all those things come together, yeah, there are benefits to be gained through sports. But if those things don't come together, no, those benefits aren't necessarily present in sports. Just to explain what I mean when I say there has to be a certain level of skill. When most people think about sports, they think about the basic skills of a sport, like throwing a ball, hitting a baseball, dribbling a basketball, shooting a free throw, making a layup. They think of these basic skills of sports. But that's not what sports are about. Those basic skills are really useless in life, if you think about it. I can throw all kinds of pitches with a baseball. That's pretty useless, you know. That's not what sports offer. When sports become valuable, when they really become helpful and useful in life, is when you have a league or a group of kids who all have those skills, where all the kids are skilled, all the kids are competitive, all the kids are good. They can run, they can hit, they can throw, they can jump, they can tackle, throw and catch, on and on. When you get a group of kids who've been playing together, playing for a long time, what happens is the sport begins to change. And the sport changes from a game where kids are practicing basic skills, useless sport-specific skills. The sport changes to become a contest that's mental, that demands virtue, that demands concentration and perseverance, playing through injuries, strategy, and things like that. And when players get to that level, that's where the benefits of sports kick in. And so it's difficult to judge whether you should invest in a student's playing to help him get to that level, where those benefits kick in and where they're available. Because at those early levels, those benefits, they're not present. Maybe just, simpler lessons like learning to play under pressure, learning to do something in front of a crowd, stuff like that. But the real value of sports takes place at higher levels, when you get to higher levels of competition where everybody's good, where there's tournaments and championships to play for and those sorts of things. That's where the real lessons of sports become available. When I look back and think of all the things that I learned through sports and how they helped me when I was becoming a Christian, they were at that level. They weren't when I was a little kid. They were in high school, and they were in championship games, in all-star tournaments and things like that. That's where you get into those great mental lessons where you learn intimate things about teamwork and loving the people you play with and playing for others and sacrificing for others and trusting your teammates, competing under pressure, learning to concentrate on strategy when there's a lot of chaos and emotions and things like that. All of those lessons are invaluable, but they're only available at a certain level, and it's hard to get to that level. So it's not something parents can just throw money at or decide to do, because it depends on a child's interest and ability. So it's not that simple, okay? That's all I want to say about sports. So when we have this question of what should we do in terms of activities, I think that for a lot of kids, there aren't going to be any formal activities that they're interested in. Most of my sons, for example, they would rather spend the day fishing or playing in the creek or climbing trees or making bows and arrows and weapons and playing out in the woods. They would rather go out and knock around and play rather than participate in some formal sport. And remember, most of these sports, what's a game last? An hour, 2 hours when you're a little kid? That's really not that fun. So my kids would rather, go swimming, go play in the woods, go fishing, and so on. Go to the beach for a couple days. So it depends on the kids. But like I said, my youngest daughter, interested in ballet, totally different. Easy to discern that interest, easy to see that it's a sustained interest, and worth investing in as a parent. My oldest son with his weightlifting, sustained interest, very clear, motivated, worth investing in. Other kids don't show that kind of sustained interest, not worth investing in. It's pretty clear when they have an interest worth getting involved with. Now, as far as socializing, those interests are going to lead to relationships. They go into a crowd and they find another kid who shares that interest, and now they have a shared vocabulary and experiences, conversations real easy. That's how social relationships work. So the kids' interests are going to lead them to friends, and parents can't force kids into friendships. That's not what friendship is. So parents don't need to have all this pressure concerned with finding social things for their kids. They just need to help their children see and understand what they're really interested in, allow them to participate in things that they're really interested in, whether it's sports or music or dance or art or technology or some kind of work, whatever it may be. Identifying real interests, allowing kids the opportunity to pursue those interests, and seeing that friends will develop within those circles naturally. That's the way to help children find friends, if that's a concern of yours. One thing my family does is we have a health club membership. We have a great local health club. We have a family membership, and everybody goes there. The kids go there. The older kids go there to lift weights. The younger kids go there to swim in the pool and in the outside water park. My wife goes there to swim for some exercise and work on the treadmill. I go there to lift weights and work out on a treadmill. We use the local health club as a place to go and get an hour or two of exercise every day. Something simple like that, where there's lots of different activities, things for the kids to do, and as they separate into their different activities, they meet different kids who are there all the time, and they start to become friends, and the things just develop naturally. So something like a local health club membership. Every summer we go to the beach. The kids, get to do that. So social activities, it's all based on family interests, family resources, what's available in your area. My wife's family lives at the beach, so going to the beach for us is a no-brainer. We live on a farm, so all of the outdoor activities of the farm, shooting guns and BB guns and slingshots and bows and arrows and all that stuff is natural for the kids. Being able to climb trees and build forts and go fishing, play in the creek, catch animals. The kids aren't interested in formal activities, but some kids are. So I would just advise that you allow your kids' interests to answer those questions for you. Don't waste your time forcing things on the kids. That's not going to work. Don't try to live out your own dreams and desires through your children. That's not social life. But let your kids' interests direct these things, and then look around for what's available, quality of instruction, quality of coaching. Those things have to be considered. Like with my daughter, she attends a ballet school that teaches classical ballet. It's a real ballet school. It's formal, systematic instruction. That's what I would be interested in for her. I could send her across town to another dance school where it's garbage, and I have no interest in that. So the schools that are available matter. The sports teams and coaches that are available matter. Whether you're going to participate directly as a coach or as a volunteer, things like that matter. Your time, costs of things matter, family resources matter. There's no easy way to answer that question, but there's got to be quality in activities that are participated in. If our families pursue these things through church life, homeschool life, and activities that might be available for homeschool families, again, don't force awkward, unnatural relationships on the kids. Friendships have to develop naturally. Homeschool co-ops might not work if your kids don't like the kids who are there. So it's not that simple, but church parish life and activities, homeschool activities, sports, extracurricular activities, music and the arts, different interests, like I said before. Kids get interested in mechanical things. There are all kinds of groups and organizations for kids to get involved with. Unfortunately, a lot of them are going south these days, but lots of stuff for the kids to consider, and they need to pursue interests that they actually desire and want to do, not that their parents want them to do. So signing them up for all the activities in town, that never works. Trying to force them to do things, that doesn't work. Trying to force activity, that's not how it works. That's not socializing. That's terrorizing the poor kids. I would never want that as a kid myself. I never wanted my parents to sign me up for things I wasn't interested in. And at the same time, I really loved and was thankful when they signed me up for things that I was interested in. So, let the kids' interests dictate what your family does. It depends on circumstances. But don't listen to the talk that homeschooling doesn't provide socialization. That's a bunch of nonsense. School's not responsible for kids' friends. And then secondly, don't believe talk like, oh, you need to do this and do this because this sport and this activity teaches kids all these lessons. That's not necessarily true. That depends on the people involved and the circumstances, what's available in your area, how much you can afford. If you can't go all in on the lessons, sometimes it's not worth having lessons at all. So it depends on all the details. You have to collect the information, find out everything that's going on, check to see that your kid's interest is sustained. It's a real interest. It's not just, some idea pops in the kid's head because he watched a show and now he decides he wants to be a BMX racer. So you're going out and buying BMX equipment and then the next day, that's over. Don't fall for that stuff. Make sure it's a sustained interest. Look around for good opportunities. Be willing to spend a little extra for a quality opportunity for the kids. And the other thing that I encourage with my kids that I should mention is I encourage them to pursue activities that they can use throughout life. So for example, martial arts classes, dance classes, fitness activities like running, lifting weights, those kinds of things they can keep with them their whole lives. And so those things are worth investing in. As I said before, specific sports skills, they become useless when a kid gets older. You can play football for the local Pop Warner team and learn all of this skill and all of this stuff of Pop Warner football. But you need 50 kids and you need equipment and a field and goalposts and referees and helmets and shoulder pads and all. That's not really a sustainable game. It's good to learn how to play football because it's a fun group activity, but consider whether different skills and opportunities, can continue into adult life and be a pastime that the kids enjoy forever. I don't play baseball anymore or anything like that. I might shoot baskets with the kids and play around. So basketball, to play 2-on-2 or 1-on-1 is still useful. But I run and I lift weights for fitness and health. And I started that back when I was a kid. So choose the activities wisely. Don't fall for oversimplified, advertisements for different activities or clubs or leagues or schools or anything else. Make sure you get into the details. Figure out what it actually costs to do things well. And if you can't afford to do them well, you need to consider whether it's worth doing because often it's not. So make sure you don't give yourself over to this pressure about socializing and activities. There are valuable things to be gained, but there's more to it than that. So look into things carefully, gather all the information, count the costs, and see that your kids have sustained interest in things before you go running around and throwing money all over the place. I hope that helps. God bless.